Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, and I'm joining you from Lima, Peru. As you can see, got a bit of a room makeover. If you saw a special pod, you kind of got a sneak peek of it. If you're wondering what those are, that's a Walter Manuel shirt, and the other one's an Atlantic Bilbao shirt. Although the latter is probably going to get taken down because for this pod specifically, I really only want Peruvian football shirts up there. So, and secondly, I'll introduce Peter first because much to his he's going to be pleased to know that I got a new chair. So how are you, Peter, up in Toronto?
That is the best news I've heard all day. Thank you, Ryan. My editing is now so much easier now, so I appreciate it. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael is back with us. Michael, he has a very interesting story to tell as well. So how are you, Michael?
Yeah, looking forward to telling that story. We're happy to be here and looking forward to another hour's conversation about Peruvian football.
Happy to have you too. And there was something in the air that night. The stars were bright. Viscardo is also in the bottle up in Utah. So I'm sorry, I had to do that.
I was just like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. But you couldn't help it.
I couldn't help it. You saw me laughing right when the pod started. I was literally thinking about that. I had to get it out of my head before it wanted me the rest of the pod.
All right, fair enough. Well, I'm doing well. First of all, I am glad to see Michael is in good health. That was a little bit of a scare on Sunday, considering that there was a lot of rumors of what had happened outside of the stadium, which is also very unfortunate.
You just spoiled it. I was supposed to say it.
Very unfortunate events. But anyways, let's go right into it. I think we'll have plenty to talk about.
Hey, I'm the host. Okay. Okay, that's a good start. I don't want to be too picky. So we're gonna talk about first Alianza versus Cristal. This whole pod is gonna be a clausura talk. We'll try to make up for some Peruvians abroad in the next pod or in two pods, depending how the schedule looks. But this whole pod is gonna be clausura talk because there's a lot of things we need to discuss. This is the one pod we have the most room to talk about that since the Peruvian friendlies are coming up soon. And we're not gonna have room there, so I think this is a good part to just discuss it fully. So first of all, Alianza versus Sporting Cristal. That's the big takeaway from the weekend. Obviously, a derby, maybe not the biggest derby. Well, it isn't the biggest derby in Peru. I can tell you that much. But it's still an important match. And as Christopher spoiled, thank you, Christopher. Michael was there. Michael was at the match. He didn't let me know or anything, which he doesn't need to. But it was nice to know he was there, and even then he was able to take some videos for us. So, but unfortunately, it went from being a really good experience to a kind of a scary one. So, Michael, why don't you tell us how this experience went and some of your consensus on the match overall?
Well, where do I start? I went with a friend. I went with a friend who's a massive Alianza fan. I must admit, I wouldn't class myself as an Alianza fan at all. I think if I have more of a weakness for the Peruvian clubs, but really Peruvian football, I just like football, so I just go to watch. So I'd happily go and watch any team. And this game, of course, I thought this was going to be a really good game. So when my friend on the Wednesday said, "Look, I can get a ticket for you. Are you interested?" I jumped at the chance. And we have a little kind of tradition where we go for some food beforehand around the stadium. There's some great places where you can have a ceviche and whatever. So we went out, and you could instantly say that it was going to be a big game. I think there were 25,000 tickets sold, if I'm not mistaken. The last time I was there was the last game of the Apertura when they played Binacional, and there was one man and his dog there. You could instantly tell I arrived at 1, so that's 3 hours before the game, and we went to sit down to have some food, and there was already a lot of people, and we were sitting eating a ceviche, and you could hear, well, you didn't know what it was kind of this kind of explosion. I just think it's fireworks, because in Peru you get a lot of fireworks, so these kind of these fireworks, you don't see the colours, but they just kind of explode. So I just assumed it was something like that. Well, in fact, it probably was. But, of course, later you hear that there's been some kind of mass brawling and some kind of shootout near the stadium. So the atmosphere, let's put it this way, was edgy from the beginning. Edgy in a way which I shared on Facebook and Twitter in a positive way. I said, look at this, half an hour before kickoff, and you can sense the atmosphere. In a way that for someone who's from Britain is a little bit it's different, isn't it? And I find it quite appealing, all of the passion. But yeah, you could tell it was edgy, and of course, Cristal scored very early, and instantly I could see to my right behind the goal in the kind of south stand that there was big problems, and it was obvious that there was some Cristal fans there who would celebrate it, which I don't think is the most intelligent thing to do when you're surrounded by some of Alianza's most hardcore supporters. And what you could see was them being kind of chased. And you've got the fences, haven't you, that separate the kind of the Occidente and the Oriente from the south. And you could just see these people climbing in. But of course, they were climbing into where we were. But then the people on our side weren't too happy with them either. So it was kind of a wild goose chase around the stadium for these fans. They were jumping over the fence to get away from the badass behind the goal. But of course, the people where we weren't very happy with them either. So you could tell, of course, and the police pile in to try and calm things down. And thankfully, the game is good. And Alianza, despite the early goal, are not playing too badly, really. And Alianza equalise. And that kind of quietens things down again. Now, I don't know when this was, but for the second goal for Cristal, I noticed that behind now, not the sword behind the south stand, but behind the north stand, there's now a massive group of Cristal fans, which are surrounded by police. So the police must have known they were there and have kind of cordoned them off. So they're not in a normal way the away fans are normally there, but the police have made their own little cordon and they've allowed them to be there, which was really surprising, because I said to my friend, hey, I thought this was just for Alianza fans. And he said, yeah, you know, they must have just realized they're in there, and to try and stop it getting really aggressive, the police have just come in to try and make their own segregation. So by that stage, it was really, really messy. And when Cristal scored the second, they were going mental behind that goal. There was more things kicking off, even where we were. There were a lot of Cristal fans in the ground. The game in the second half, Alianza are playing quite well. Alianza on top, actually. You wouldn't know if the game had carried on. Would they have got a goal? I mean, they were pushing for it, weren't they? I mean, I think they had Cristal. I wouldn't say against the ropes, but they were really pushing for that goal. And suddenly the game stops. And my friend says to me, first of all, this isn't normal, because you could see all of the police coming around from the behind the goals down to the palco, which is near where we were. And I made a joke to my friend and said, because Guerrero and Gareca were sitting literally 15 rows to my left. And I said, oh, you know, the thing is, Gareca has got bored and he wants to go home. So the police have come in to give him less scores as a joke. And then my friend said, no, Michael, this isn't normal. This is obviously a little bit serious. By which time, Brian or Peter send me a message, and I get this kind of, stay safe when you leave the ground. And I was like, huh? I was, honestly, you knew more what was going on with me. I wasn't really on social media. I was just talking to my friend. I didn't know what had gone on. And of course, that's the thing where social media comes into play, doesn't it? Because then rumors fly around, and then people are there saying, look, there's been a shooting outside, or there's lots of chaos cracked up outside. I said, well, what's going to go on here? And they talked for maybe about 5 minutes. And of course, they don't really tell you much what's going on. They just say, because of something outside the ground, we're stopping the game. And then they came on about 5 minutes later and said, the game's off. Everyone then goes out. And that was the nervy bit for me as well, I suppose, because there's a big group of people leaving the ground, and we were a bit unsure what was happening, whether it was safe for us to leave or not. So we went out with the masses, kind of had a very brisk walk out of La Victoria, the area, till we got near the National Stadium, where from there we could get a taxi. Those 10 minutes walking out, you could again. Thankfully, I was all right. Thankfully, I was okay. But I think Yeah, you three will tell me more. I mean, you've been living in Peru, and you're kind of Peruvian, and you know the history of these kind of things. That why they only allow teams from or fans from uh, one set of fans into the ground, and the history of these problems. And to be honest with you, it's the first time I've ever really seen anything like it. So for me, it was an uncomfortable experience. I just thought it was a real pity because actually it was a really good game, and it was showing Peruvian football, I think, in pretty good light. There were two good teams.
Yep.
There was a nice crowd there. It was a nice sunny day, and I just thought it was a massive shame. Actually, I thought how it ended was a massive shame.
Well, thanks to the your experience, Michael. It was definitely a great story, and it definitely sounds like an uncomfortable experience. I want to say I think that the problem here is that they only allowed the home fans, or they only allowed the home fans. I put that in quotes for those listening on SoundCloud, because when I went to Universidad de Cristal a few times before, and usually there's no problem with the away fans. I mean, there were problems in the last time when Low played Cristal, but that was a one-timer. You do get that all the time where they do get into fights, but most of the times there's nothing wrong. I think the only game that really needs banning in the league is La U versus Alianza, because that's where people really start to kill each other and like throw each other off the ground. Or off palcos, I guess you could say. That's happened before. Oh, so many times, way too many times. It's way too. What is the word? It is way too partisan. That's the word. And even when it's just home fans, it's really partisan. But I think only having home fans is better. But that said, there are a number of away fans that do sneak in regardless. The thing is, you gotta not make it obvious, like these Cristal fans obviously did not do. So it's clear that I do think it's a bit fishy that maybe they were let in on purpose. I don't know. But the whole thing seems oddly run.
My question is this, Brian. I mean, when you go and buy a ticket, I mean, I can go and watch my team, Derby in England, and I've sat. I mean, I remember I went to the year when Bournemouth got promoted. I went for a weekend in Bournemouth. Of course, Bournemouth Stadium's small, so you can't get as many away fans. And I could get a ticket in the Bournemouth end, and I just sat very calmly, and there was no problem. And of course, I didn't wear any Derby colours, and when Derby scored, I didn't jump up. I just kind of was very calm. Now, when you buy a ticket, it doesn't say on your ID in Peru that you're a fan of Alianza or you're a fan of La U or you're a fan of Cristal. If you assume that fans are always going to try and get in, is there an argument that it's safer to let them in and just police it well?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the only one that's successfully been calm is La U versus Alianza, like I said, because the away fans were banned and there weren't as many problems because those games do get out of control. And you even tell on social media with all the memes and all the times they make fun of each other, it just gets embarrassing at times, to be honest. And you could tell, like, if they meet up at the actual ground, it's just gonna get messy. So I think that it's going to ban that one, but that's it. I think the rest of the games should be allowed away fans because there's really not been many problems, not to my memory anyways. I mean, there's been a few this year. This year has been a disaster as a whole, bar the World Cup for Peruvian football. But it's just the nature of the people here, and it's a social problem. It's definitely not a problem that can be policed so easily. So I think that's one of the issues.
Can any of you do any of you have any idea what the consequence will be? I mean, is there a precedent here? Well,
there's already a consequence actually. The Populares part of the ground, which is the barras, are banned for 3 games for La U Alianza, which I'm not sure if it's the right punishment, but it's because we've had all these punishments before, and it's just gonna happen again. But there's gotta be another solution. I think that this is just gonna encourage more violence.
It's ridiculous how the police or how the government continues to change its mind on whatever it is that they believe the right policy should be. It's almost like we see an act of violence. There, people go crazy. They ask the government to do something. The government does something extreme, which only will last for a year or two or a few months, we'll go back to the old policy, and then we'll wait and we'll sit there until, just kind of waiting for something to happen for the cycle to repeat itself. I think that the only consistent policy that the government has kept up so far is the one to not bring flags or drums or other color identifying stuff into the stadium, which is completely ridiculous, because obviously if there's going to be violence, I don't think flags are inherently violent. I think the people carrying them are probably violent. And I don't know what their logic is there. Do they think that they're going to be used as a weapon? Are they going to be using their drums as a weapon? I think that the government does need to, get a little bit more serious about it. But at the same time, the responsibility falls back to the people, and it really does show how much there is left to do in ways of civility and education in Peru. In the end, if, like you just said, Michael, obviously, if the game is only for home fans and you're an away fan, I don't care how passionate you are. You really want to go see your team, then you have to know that part of the rules is that if they scored, you get to smile. You don't get to cheer. You don't get to stand up. You don't get to show your colors, because that's the rules that the home fans have set for themselves. Each club, it is their private event, their private property. When you go to their stadium, and you have to abide by their rules. You wouldn't do that. If I went to Brian's house, I wouldn't go and destroy his house. Obviously, it's his property, right? And there is no excuse to that. I can't say I just feel really passionate. I really liked your jerseys on the wall, so I had to just destroy your house. I mean, there is no excuse. I always like to remind everyone that the reason why soccer was created in the first place was to teach honor, civility, all these beautiful values that the Victorians kind of had in mind back in the 1800s, right? And instead of having wild, rowdy boys, they wanted to teach them, team spirit and team sports. And so if we remember that the origins of soccer kind of had that in mind, then we should be able to be passionate, but at the same time control our passions. And unfortunately, people, luckily nobody died this time, but people have died in Peruvian stadiums. And so there has to be something between education on one hand, and we need to remind people that we need to be civilized. And maybe the government does have to step in and kind of enact the same things that happened in England. I believe it was in the 80s and 90s that hooliganism was just radically wild. It was bad. Until finally something major happened, and UEFA and the government and everybody said, okay, we're going to take certain measures here so that we can make sure that these events are not violence-provoking things, but there are peaceful things in which we can enjoy ourselves. And I think the government is lacking a little bit in that sense too.
Now I would like to step in. You first to your point about you just get to smile if you score a goal as an away fan. First of all, before I want to talk about a little bit about River Plate as an example, but before that, also relate to River Plate in a way is actually a story my mother told me. In 2003, when Cienciano reached the Copa Sudamericana final, my mother was there in Argentina for the away leg against River Plate, and she told me for the first two goals they would not celebrate, where Cienciano scored the first two goals. And then when they took the lead against River 3-2, that's when they really jumped up. So sometimes these things are just like, it's just the reaction of the body. Like, it's kind of like laughter. Like, sometimes you don't want to laugh, but sometimes you can't really help it either because, I mean, if you see something really funny, you're going to laugh, most likely. I'm not sure how great of an example that is, but it's a reaction of the body. That's what I'm going on about. And as for your point, Christopher, about the passion, destroying my house and whatnot, I'm not going to talk about my house, by the way, but I think the Peruvian government should take some precautions in case Universitario get relegated, because you got to think about River Plate when they got relegated. You got to think about how it ended up for Argentina and Buenos Aires in particular. How people destroyed places around the stadium and whatnot. And the day if Universitario do get relegated, I am not leaving the house that day because it's going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, probably would be. I do want to bring up one example, actually, though, to that River Plate thing, because in December, I went to the Old Firm. And my cousin's a diehard Celtic fan, and that's been on his bucket list for years. So we decided to go over because he has a few family members there. He's a third cousin of mine. And basically in the lead up to that game, the family members and just people around town that we met in the pubs and whatnot were telling us the only real rules you need to abide by, despite what you might hear on TV or read on the internet, the only rules you need to abide by are, until you get to the stadium, this is if you are going as a home fan, you cover up your colors and you don't celebrate and or wildly talk about the game in public. So very, very, and like, listen, Scottish fans, especially Celtic Rangers fans, in such a, dramatically intense match, they are obviously out for blood in a lot of those cases, at least when it comes to their team winning or losing. They can still contain themselves. So I know that for Latinos who are very expressive, they're emotional, it's very hard for them to do that. But you also have to know that if you are going to put yourself in a precarious situation, you have to be very careful. Those Cristal fans, look, something far, far worse could have happened than just 4 people getting gunshot wounds outside the stadium, going to the hospital, and being okay. Thankfully, they are okay. But as Christopher said, something a lot worse could have happened. But I think the overall point is, guys, the police need to be better prepared for these situations in the meantime. And it looked to me, maybe Michael can speak more to this because he obviously saw where the police were and everything. They didn't seem that prepared for the scenario, even though they probably knew that, listen, there are going to be away fans that are going to show up to the stadium. Some of them might end up in the tribuna because, let's be honest, you're rushing fans in, and some are going to go into sections where they probably shouldn't be going. In that case, you have to be more organized in that way. Make sure that fans at least go into a safer side of the stadium, or just, as Michael mentioned, just segregate them. If there are large pockets of fans, make sure nothing happens. And at the end of the day, a couple of lunatics with guns who probably aren't really football fans, are probably more there just to cause a ruckus. They're the ones who kind of ended up making it worse, really.
Kobita, what bothers me a little bit is when you read the newspaper after, and it's like no one really wants to take responsibility for it. So the clubs say it's a society problem. They say, look at the insecurity you have in Lima in general, and this is just a problem of Peruvian society. And then the club, Alianza, says, oh, it's got nothing to do with us. Cristal say, this has got nothing to do with us. We put on our social media that no fans could go. The police, it's not their responsibility either. And you think, well, everybody's kind of wiping their hands off this, aren't they? And saying, this has got nothing to do with us. And I wish they would all just get together and say, in fact, we could all have done something better here.
I agree completely.
The police at Alianza, I'll give an example. The game against Binacional, I have an American colleague, another English teacher here, and he's not a massive football fan, but he wanted to go. So I said, oh, we'll go to this game. It's not like a lively one. It's easy to get a ticket to. So we went, and he went in his kind of baseball cap, and I went with my newspaper because I'd been reading the newspaper. And we get to the door, and newspapers confiscated. I'm not sure why that was taken off me.
They confiscate everything here.
My brother did tell me, Michael, have you been reading The Guardian in public again or something? But
just to interrupt you, Michael, just to let you know, just be prepared. They confiscate everything here before you go to the ground. One time I went to the ground in the Estadio Nacional. I don't think they banned this anymore, but about 2 years ago, a game against Municipal, I was wearing a hoodie, and they banned my hoodie. You know what they did to confiscate it? They didn't take my hoodie. They just put it inside the sweater. Like they grabbed it and put it in the sweater.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, you can go inside. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Well, this friend, my friend, they took his baseball cap, saying baseball cap's not allowed. We sit down, and literally within the same block where we're sat, there's 16 people in a baseball cap. We counted. My friend said, I guess he just wanted my baseball cap. And I said, yeah. So it's about right, kind of sort. And I mean, it's an anecdote, but the point is, the police seem to just take, if they see someone like my friend, they take his baseball cap, yet other people seem to be able to walk in with weapons. I mean, so the police aren't completely innocent in here. The clubs must have some responsibility. I mean, if Alianza are holding the game, they must have some responsibility on that it kind of goes ahead. I mean, at the end, I mean, they couldn't even guarantee the safety. I think that was the reason given for the cancellation, wasn't it? The police said, look, we can't guarantee the safety of the fans or the players. So Alianza have got some blame, and I dare say that the violence in Peruvian society, I mean, that you see in football is a reflection of society, isn't it? In a way, well, I would argue that. So, but nobody wants to take responsibilities, and that frustrates me.
All right, well, why don't we talk about a little bit about the game now that we're kind of running low on time to fit everything we want to talk about in. So Michael's already said his bit. Why don't we let Peter Viz say their bit? I know for a fact Peter did watch the game. So Peter, how what did you think of the game itself?
Well, like Michael said, it was kind of a shame that the game had to be suspended because it was a really good game, especially the first half. It was quite enthralling. And, you know, it was really fitting, I thought, that, you know, Mario Salas, at least from the looks of it, almost kind of used Alianza's style against them. They were the ones who were kind of sitting back more. They were the ones who conceded possession. It was Alianza who was maybe controlling the game a little bit more often. They still had a few dangerous breaks, and we saw both teams playing with high lines, which, especially in Alianza's case, was a very bad idea given their fullback problems in the game. And both midfields just spraying passes across the pitch. It was a very, very good game. And then just maybe more in depth, that front three for Alianza looked absolutely fantastic. The Afonso, Quevedo, Holberg trio was just running circles around Cristal's defense. Quevedo, to me, was very lively, taking on Johan Madrid, going around him, winning fouls, obviously scored, and set up a couple very good chances. Holberg playing in a free role, kind of whether he was going from right to left or cutting inside, occupying that number 10 role. He kind of didn't really have a defined position, but it gave him the freedom to basically do what he wanted. And I think it was fitting that with Gareca in attendance, he delivers this kind of performance. But in terms of Cristal, look, they very nearly pulled out a win, even though they didn't necessarily look that good. And I think this is one of their more disappointing performances in general. I think they just kind of, I mean, Herrera's free kick was amazing. Obviously got them started. And Marcos Lopez was having a field day against Garro on that left-hand side. And obviously set up the second goal. So, and I'm sure Brian will have a little bit of a rant about the fullback problems, but I digress. Yeah, it was just, it was a enthralling game, but at the same time also a very odd game just because both teams didn't necessarily play the way you thought they would.
Well, I'm not going to talk too much about the game because I had to watch it with one eye. I had to do some couple of video work. I had no complaints, although I would have liked to watch it in focus. But I have no complaints because I love what I do anyway. So, but I do want to say, Benguccio, you have a proper right back. Put him on instead of Garro. So, Christopher, what do you think on the game?
I thought it was a good game from what I watched of it. I too, like you, was had one eye on the Alianza game and one eye on the Sporankas game, which we won, by the way. Just wanted to let you know, guys. But I think that it was I don't know. It almost felt like, looks like Salas was ready to do some harm, but like the team overall was like fairly passive. I don't know. I mean, there was interesting periods of it, and obviously Emmanuel Herrera by far was the best the best player in Cristal, for sure. But other than that, I just felt like Cristal was holding on a little bit. There was something there that was holding them back. Maybe you can explain that better, Brian. But other than that, yeah, it was a really fun game. It was quite interesting to see. And it was also interesting to see how it seemed like Alianza just picked things right back up the next morning also and was able to tie that. I personally think that if the game had continued, I think that Alianza would have tied regardless. I do think that could have made things even more interesting, and then at that point it would have been a game for either one. I think either one of them could have scored a third goal. So I think, if anything, that was kind of the damper on things that in the end we ended up with a draw that doesn't really benefit. Oh well, I guess you could say that it benefits Alianza, even though they were at home, they should have gotten all 3 points. But it most certainly does not benefit Cristal, who are going to have a difficult time with the rest of the games that they have left in this clausura. So those were my overall impressions of the game, really.
All right, so before we move on to the other teams, because we're gonna kind of go along mentioning Cristal alongside, because I think that their team that definitely needs to be mentioned, especially with how many points they've been dropping lately. But first of all, we did have one question on Holberg, so let's into that right away. Peter, can you get it for us?
Indeed, mentioned Andy Holberg, Alejandro Holberg, and because Gareca was in attendance and whatnot, so we were asked by Mauricio Lason Diaz at Mauricio Lason, and he asked us, after his display on Sunday, do you think that Alejandro Holberg is still on Gareca's list? I will basically just say possibly, but I don't think he is.
Yeah, neither do I.
You know, and I think we've stated that reason many times, Brian. He's not really that big stage player. Didn't really impress too much at the Copa America Centenario. No question, a great player for Alianza. And I said it even back in the Torneo de Verano as well, and during the early stages of the Libertadores as well. Holberg, to me, I think, got a little bit amplified, let's say. His performances were almost under the microscope in a good way, because the rest of Alianza was so poor to start the season, and people kind of built up this momentum like, oh yeah, you know, he should get a call up, he should get a chance. Look, I still think players based on form should at least get a shot, but I don't think that Gareca, based on the past, will probably give him the opportunity, considering he maybe didn't take his first 1 or 2 chances.
Well, I'll go on with my quick opinion, then we can go on through the other teams just because we're running a bit low on time for the rest. Holberg, I've already mentioned that I don't think he's good enough for the national team, but another thing I should mention is that I think there's better. Simply, I think there's too many options on his wing, on both of his wings, and, you know, if Guerrero Farfan's not going to play, I mean, maybe you can consider him as a 9, but I still don't really want him. I think that I think that he's kind of peaked. Like I said, I made the comparison with Alexis Arias the other day, where he looked out of his depth in the Libertadores as well and the Pan American games, but at least there's potential to play around. Whereas I think Holberg is kind of peaked, and I personally don't think Gareca rates him very much either. And lastly, the last thing I wanted to say, and I almost forgot it as well, is that he's just an Benavente Ruiz. He doesn't really fit the style. He's more of a Uruguayan style player. So. Yeah, I don't think it works in any way.
Oh, so, I would so fight you on the Benavente Ruiz point, but we got to move on. So let's.
Ruiz are great players, but we all know they kind of struggle with the style. Like it kind of holds them back a little bit.
Doesn't mean you can't change the system, Brian.
I love both players, but we're not going to change the system about 2 players that aren't marquee. But let's eat that for another time.
All
so, right. Okay, so first let's talk about the contenders. So why don't we get 2 or 3 contenders to fight Cristal in this clausura? I'll start with you, Michael. You haven't talked in a little bit.
Well, I think Garcilaso, aren't they? They're playing really well. I mean, Garcilaso playing well. I think they're going to be up there. Garcilaso and Melgar, maybe. Alianza, I think are going to be competitive. I think if it's not going to be Cristal, I think it'll be one of those 3. What do you all think?
All right, Peter. I'll go last. Peter, you go, and then after Viz can say his 2 cents.
Yeah, I think Garcilaso as well. Not just because of, I think, the fact that they score a lot of goals, which they clearly are. Everybody's in form. They have a bit of an easier run-in as well compared to Cristal. They got some very tough away fixtures, which they're going to have to deal with, and I think Garcilaso might capitalize in that way. And I think the signings that Melgar made, much like Garcilaso as well, they address clear weaknesses, and the likes of Gonzalez and Echemaite and Joel Sanchez are going to, I think, fit in very nicely into that team, give them a little bit of flexibility going forward. And they don't have very many weaknesses to me, whether it's at the back or going forward. So they would be up there for me as well. The third, I really don't want to sleep on Deportivo Municipal. I worry about their goal scoring a little bit, but as we also saw with Cristal in the first couple of phases, if you have a strong defense too, you always have a chance to nick a late winner or score off a set piece or really do whatever. And then Muni definitely looked very defensively sound, so I'd probably say them as well.
And Vince, how about you?
I think that Real Garcilaso probably have the best chances. I believe that Melgar under Torres has gone down a little bit. I am a firm believer that to make these predictions, one should look at the aggregate table and kind of see how their seasons have been going so far. And even though that Real Garcilaso and Melgar are very close to each other, only 3 points apart in the aggregate table, because of how they've been playing and kind of what to me seems like Melgar's cooling down per se, I would also be inclined to say Real Garcilaso. Although a serendipitous surprise to me would be Deportivo Municipal. After their victory in Huaraz, they really seem to have that energy. They carried that energy on, I believe, into this Sport Boys match, even though they were not able to get the result. I think that would, who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us and we'll see something coming from them, kind of between the top four for sure, and maybe part of that bracket for sure.
Boys, I think Deportivo Municipal, they've really surprised me because I think you three get to watch more games than I do. But I saw them a little bit in the Apertura, and I wasn't blown away by them at all. But they seem to have improved. Am I right there? I mean, I saw them a little bit in the Torneo de Verano, and then the Apertura. I saw them a few games on television, and I didn't think they were up to much. But they do seem to have got a little bit better. And I'm only going from resúmenes, what I've seen on the television here, kind of in the Clausura. But they do look to be playing well, and they do look to improve somewhat.
Now I'll give my 2 cents on this. First of all, Garcilaso, of course, they're the informed team. They have an easy run of games, like Peter said, and they have improved their squad a lot. And then Kifo is playing really well. He's getting better than he did at Melgar in the last year at Universitario. And then just like Kristen Alessandrini, who have sung his praises before. Now, my nitpick with Garcilaso is that I still don't like that Santiago is playing as a left winger. I think that, first of all, I don't rate Cosillo that much. He's improved, but I still don't rate him very much. And secondly, Santiago is better as a left back, isn't he? But I do think maybe there isn't a left winger. Maybe that's why Tavares was playing him there. Although I hope that changes next season because I do think he's best as a left back. And I think that will fit him for the Libertadores. Now, as for my second, I do agree with Christopher that Melgar and Torres are not that great, and I can't see him staying in the job for long, to be honest. But they do have the second best squad after Cristal in the entire league. Actually, you can even make the case that the most balanced squad because Cristal have a very old midfield that are good, but they're not. I mean, you got to think that their main highlights is the forwards as well as the center back pairing. So I think Melgar have a more balanced squad. And the other day I spoke to Kyle that they were very professional, but I don't see great football from them, and I'm still waiting for the Omar Fernandez replacement. Which Gino Carrero could be that. Who knows? But he's not really playing. And Municipal is an odd one. I saw against Sport Boys yesterday. I was really unimpressed. However, they have they have good defense firstly, and they have a phenomenal keeper in Steven Rivadeneira. So that could be a very real difference changer. And I think that is having a good keeper like Rivadeneira, who basically kept them in both the Huaraz game against Sport Rosario and the Sport Boys game in the Callao. He basically got points from both of those games because his reflexes is so on point that it really does help the team in a lot of ways. And not to mention Jordi Vilches as well, who is a very good center back. But my third contender, and Peter already knows what it's going to be, is Sport Huancayo. Because it's not. I'm not saying it because of Grioni. I don't think they'll win it. Because the other day against Melgar, I saw that they've improved. Okay, they're better than they were in the Apertura because the Apertura was a mess for them. However, what I still don't see is a lot of quality and depth. That's going to be their undoing. I think they're going to play really good football, but I think their undoing is just going to be the quality and depth. Because I mean, if Norman gets injured, Bogosian is that big target man as well, but his headers go to nowhere. Like Norman heads it to the direction, like he heads it to someone else. Bogosian heads it and like just literally goes above his head and goes back down. That's what I see with Bogosian. And he doesn't have the same hold-up play, and he's just not as good. Norman, like there's not enough depth in that Huancayo team, and there's some quality missing. I think the likes of Morales and Lojas are pretty good players. I think Colombo's really declined this season. After the World Cup, he's not been the same. And Yuya's kind of slow to get back into form. I thought he had a really good weekend. If you saw the team of the week, I included him in it. And Rojas is a good player. He's a good young player. Peña can be good sometimes, a bit inconsistent, and of course Alcedo Valverde, which is a very good midfield, as far as Alfredo Rojas. So, those are my two contenders, Garcilaso, Melgar, and Huancayo. In that order specifically, I personally think Garcilaso is going to win the Clausura, which I guess we can talk about that now. So, Garcilaso, a part of these run of games, and they're going to battle Cristal, but as you can see, Cristal is capable of getting these points away from home. I think the big decider is going to be Garcilaso versus Cristal. And just because of that altitude and the strong home form, I think Garcilaso takes it. And Cristal really did not do themselves any favors by dropping points away to Alianza and Uno Comercio. Now, that said, I still think Cristal will win the league, but I just don't think they'll win the Clausura. So what do you guys think? Who wants to step in?
Guess I'll go. I do agree that Garcilaso, to me, especially given their strong start, they're already established as, I think, the favor for the Clausura. The fact that they play Cristal in, I think it's a week Wednesday, week tomorrow. So that is going to obviously be massive, as you mentioned. And I think the fact that, yes, Santillán is obviously better as a left back. We have seen that time and time again. That being said, though, him as a winger has not been terrible. In fact, he's actually been pretty decent, it must be said. The fact that Alfredo Ramua has been in form as well. You obviously got Rengifo getting goals in back-to-back games. They finally have a reference point up front, which I don't think they had in previous phases.
They didn't. They had Oscar Franco and Diego Mayora. I mean, that was terrible.
And they were poor. They were very poor, especially in Libertadores.
Diego Mayora's gone back to the second division. I mean, that's all. And he played Libertadores earlier this year. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, well, did he really, though? He was invisible the entire time. But that's obviously huge. So I think the fact that they're also going to be hosting Cristal, I think, in the altitude, in a comfortable environment, that's going to really help them. And I think that they should be favored a little more than Melgar, Huancayo, Alianza, whoever you want to throw in there as the other contenders.
Yeah. Who else wants to step in just while I recollect my thoughts? Nobody?
No, I mean, I just kind of I go with Peter, and I think it's interesting what you talk about the running. I think the running helps them, doesn't it? I think that's a really big point. So yeah, I'm going along with Peter.
Now, I guess there's two more things we have to talk about in this pod. Firstly, it's the first thing we have to talk about, I guess, is Universitario. Where do they go from here? The signings do not seem to work all that well. I mean, Hernan Dennis, it shows that he's technically still very, very good, but of course, physically he's not the same. And he's I wouldn't say he's struggling. I mean, he's creating some very good plays. In the last two games, the one that Universitario won against UTC, of course, he created a very good chance for the winner. And then there is the game against Cantona, which he created a few good chances for himself, but wasn't able to convert one. As for the other two, Alberto Rodriguez is injured, shock horror, and Lavandera I've never been a fan of personally. So I didn't think that was a great sign to begin with. He was even on the bench from Municipal, so that tells you a lot. So what do you guys think on this? I'll start with Viz. What do you think on the Universitario?
Well, I'm still bitter about Lavandera leaving Rosario at the last year, anyways. But I think that Universitario is not in a good spot economically, And so therefore they could have, brought someone else. But the question is, could they really afford anyone else?
Nope.
I think Lavandera is someone that I think can score goals. I think he's a pretty decent player, and it's something that's fairly within their budget. So therefore, I understand why that move was that way. Honestly, all they have to do at this point is just get a few more points at home and kind of hold on tight. I think this is a bad year for them. I don't see them getting anywhere close to the title or anything like that, obviously. And we know, first of all, we know that Comerciantes Unidos is basically out of the tournament. With the amount of points that they have right now, they are done for, right? Unión Comercio seems to be on the uphill climb. I think that they're also going to be safe out of the relegation zone. So then that leaves you between Universitario, Sport Boys, which I know that we're used to Sport Boys going up and down and going up and down, but we should be worried about them too. I think that the fight will be Sport Boys, Universitario, and Ayacucho. And it's like, out of those three, is Universitario really the worst team? To me, I think Ayacucho is an even worse team. I think that Sport Boys is even a worse team than Universitario. So therefore, at the end of the day, to me, Universitario will be safe from relegation. The signings that they did were not for them to, destroy everybody else on the field. They were just so that the team could find a comfortable balance per se and make sure that they keep their spot in the first division.
Now, I want to talk about Ayacucho. First of all, because I love Ayacucho, they're a former Miraflorino side, so I like them. But no, in seriousness, Ayacucho are making a fight back. They're not completely dead. They want to stay up, and that's a good mentality. Well, all clubs want to stay up. But Comerciantes, like they seem to have totally given up, and honestly, I don't blame them because at this point they're gonna have to win the rest of the games, and then hope some teams, like Universitario and Sport Boys, lose as well, fun to stay up. So they're dead now. And you can see in their games that they just don't want to. They just don't look that they want to win. They look that they've given up. They're a very cold team now. So Ayacucho looks like they're making a fight back. I don't think they'll manage it, but they signed Jose Montiel, who played at Huancayo last season with Montes. So you have a partnership, and they've gone off to a pretty good start in the Clausura. I'm pretty sure they haven't lost yet. They beat. Or they're beating Comerciantes. They're going to be given the points after that match is suspended officially, because if you remember, that match was suspended at halftime because of because of death threats the referee received or something. The referee got punched or something. So that match is suspended at halftime. Then they drew with Melgar at home. I'm pretty sure Melgar has a winning streak against Ayacucho, so that's a record broken. And they drew away with 10 men. So they obviously have the mentality that they want to stay up, and they've been here for a long time. So I really respect that. I don't think they will stay up. I would rather them go down over Lau and Sport Boys. But Ayacucho is they're making a fight back. They have some decent players now as well, like Anthony Rosell, Jose Montiel, Mauricio Montes, Victor Rosell. I think that what their undoing was losing Biasanti, who have saved them year by year. And now that he's a Cienciano, trying to get them up. They've lost a proper keeper. And Espinosa, while he's having a good few weeks. Not the same, obviously. And as for Sport Boys, I'm going to have to disagree with you because I do think Sport Boys are actually better than La now. Wilmer the Valencia, definitely not. The other day, they impressed me with their new manager, Manuel Fernandez. So they really impressed me, and I think that is I think it's good that we have Sport Boys in the Primera because even though it adds crime, yeah, that's true, it adds crime. It adds more events like Alianza, Cristal. But I don't think the fan base is big enough to create that much crime, and I don't think that I think it's good to have these important clubs here because then that gives an atmospheric reaction to the Primera Division. So let's go over Michael. Michael, what do you think on this relegation topic here?
Interesting. I actually agree with you, Brian. I like to have Sport Boys in the Primera Division. I think Peruvian football. I think Sport Boys is it's good to have them there. So I hope they stay up. Actually, I hope they'll stay up as well. I think you asked about the 3 signings they'd made. I think it was quite clear that they signed them because they wanted some more experience. Yeah. This isn't the time for kids. So I mean, Dennis is quite old. He's not played in Peru, but they've all been there, done there, haven't they? Got the T-shirt. And it's a bit of a shame that Rodriguez is looking like he's going to be back in the treatment room. But I think they weren't really thinking long term. I think they were just thinking we need to get some people, some bodies in who are going to really help us to keep our heads above water. I don't think they were thinking anything of competing to try and win. I know they say we always start the campaign thinking we're going to go to win the Clausura. But I think realistically they thought we just want to keep our heads above water here, and he thought he needed a little bit of experience to guide the youngsters. I worry for Ayacucho. I think I worry a little bit for Ayacucho.
All right, Peter, and what are your thoughts before we can wrap it up?
I think you guys said it all. The only thing I'd say about Lau is you have to give the new signings a bit of time too, right? They're thrust into a very, very high pressure situation.
Well, I don't think we can give Rodriguez time. He's already out. So.
Well, no, okay. Him aside, but we all knew that, right? So let's just talk about Lavandera and Denise. Those two, I think, will eventually develop more chemistry as it goes on. They have the ability, they have the talent. Lau's attack looks far more dynamic. You see Ciucho and Nunez and those younger attackers. They have a little more consistency now with those experienced players who I'm sure are helping them with their own games. And I think that by the time we get to maybe like the middle of the Clausura, you will see them in that sort of fluid, free-flowing form. And also, by the way, Ayacucho hosts Lau, I believe, on the 30th of September, so a week Sunday. That could be a massive game.
That's a tough game as well because Ayacucho have improved, and playing them away from home is never easy. But it was nice. It was a nice little throwback to see them play at the Ciudad Tucumana again, which they haven't played in a few years now. Definitely not this year, anyways. I remember they actually played Atlético Nacional in that ground in 2013, back when they were in the Copa Sudamericana. Back when they were in Tigas, they played Atlético Nacional, where they lost 1-0 with a Sherman Cardenas goal. Yeah, that's a blast from the past for Football Manager fans. Sherman Cardenas, I don't know where he is right now. But, there was one other thing I want to talk about, but we've run out of time. There was something about the young players in the Panamericanos, but we've run out of time. That'll be for another topic. If you saw my Twitter, it's a pretty exciting team. But, yeah, we've run out of time. And, we have 8 minutes, but 8 minutes is not going to be enough to get out what I wanted to get out. So that's going to be it. So my Twitter handle is B_Bertie98. Viz, what is yours, and who do you want to shout out?
First of all, Sherman Cardenas is playing for Atlético Bucaramanga right now. Just look that up for you. Also, shout out to Sport Ancash, who managed to defeat our regional rival Cipesa at home in a 3-1 game. So there's still hope for us. We're very close to making it to the top half of the table in Copa Peru, and I have faith that we'll continue to do well. Anyways, my Twitter handle is VIZ_FC.
All right, Michael, what is yours?
MT Williams 1987. MT Williams.
And Peter, what is yours, as well as the Peruvian Waltz?
Yes, at Galindo PW is where you can follow me, and you can follow the show, at Peru Waltz. Subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. Leave us a review if you listen on an iPhone, because it greatly helps the show.
All right, and I just wanted to get this out. Let's pray for Christopher that Christopher Chadun doesn't knock you out and celebrate.
No.
I made that joke way too many times.
You keep saying that, but,
I have to say it live. It's
going to be backwards,
Good luck, anyways. Good luck, Sport Ancash. They play tomorrow. So
that's right.
You're going to double shout out. Next week, we'll find out if they made it to the next round or they got knocked out. So we'll find out next week. So thank you for listening, and that's all for today. This is the Peruvian Waltz team, and we are signing off.
Thank you.